Cool. Okay, well, I'm going to give a quick intro and then we have a ton of updates. So this is going to be, it's going to go fast, it's going to be exciting. And again, if you have questions, please feel free to use the chat. So for an intro, I'm just going to go ahead and give you kind of an overview. So we'll be talking about some of the past work that has gone into the past releases or about to be released. We're going to go over the ongoing work. This is the work that the IF Labs team is working on right now in terms of all the stacks for Ironfish. Then we're going to talk a little bit about some of the future things that are coming up, as well as grants and partnerships. And then Kelly is going to talk about the Ambassadar Program that we've been setting up as well. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and give it up to Derek to talk about some of the recent work that went into the last couple of releases. Derek? Okay, great.
All right, I'm here. So I'm subbing in for Jason, and I just wanted to mention a couple of things that he has been working on recently. And these are a little bit more like developer focused or node operator focused. The first one is that for people who are running Docker images, these will mostly be people who are like hosting services somewhere, but we're now publishing version tags for each version that we release. Previously, we just published like a latest one, but the version tags will be a little bit easier for people to incrementally update, and then also if they need to like roll back to an older version for whatever reason. An example was like we had introduced a bug with key importing at some point that only worked on older versions. So if it's easy to install older versions like it is on npm, then it lets people roll back if necessary, and then also rather than if they're far behind, they can incrementally upgrade to one version at a time rather than having to do a big jump all at once. So Jason got that working again. That's super helpful. And he's also worked on keeping the CLI wallet up to date so that it runs on the new version of Node.js. And that's important because the new version is the one that people typically get when they download Node.js by default. So rather than requiring people to seek out like an older version just so they can use the CLI wallet, it'll work on the latest version. And the reason why part of the reason why we're keeping these up to date is because it's good to have users of the SDK that we publish. The SDK is like the core node code. And for a while, it was mostly just our published CLI that was using it. But if other people are using it too, then it makes sure that we don't have code in the CLI that is needed in the SDK that should be shared, or vice versa, that the SDK isn't made specifically for the purposes of the CLI, but it can be used in a bunch of different cases. So those are a bit developer focused, but as far as stuff that's more user focused, Rahul's going to talk a little bit about his tools that he's been working on to help address issues with transactions getting stuck or taking a really long time to process. So Rahul, take it away.
Thank you, Derek. Yeah, as Derek mentioned, it was maybe a month or a couple months ago where we noticed like a lot of our users, they had transactions that would get stuck and then they would eventually get expired before they were able to post onto the network. The reason why this happened is because those transactions involved a lot of notes. So note when sending their transaction. The other thing that we shipped in the last release was a combine command. So it's wallet : notes : combine. What this lets you do is basically take all of those small notes and combine them into one larger note. And it does so in a way that basically it takes into account the power of your machine and basically will suggest notes to combine so that the transaction doesn't expire. The other couple improvements that we've made is we have added a better when you're sending a transaction, we list out the number of notes that you're going to send. So if it says like, oh, this is going to take, this is going to use 1,000 notes, maybe at that point, you could use the combine command to combine your notes together. Ideally, we want to be in a state where this is not a problem at all and you don't have to do anything to fix it. And we're definitely moving towards that path. One way is better note selection, and that should be out by the next release. So those are some of the updates on that problem. And I will hand it off to Joe to talk about the work that he's done on the standalone executable.
Sorry, before we move on to Joe or Hugh, sorry, Joe. I just want to highlight how important this problem is, and it's not fully solved, and we do acknowledge that there's a lot more work to be done. But this is something that we have heard over and over and over again as probably the biggest complaint of like, you're not able to send a transaction, and people have confusion as to why. And so before, people didn't even understand or had any like visibility as to why their transaction was being expired. And so this is like a really, really great first step, or first couple steps actually, to try and mitigate that problem. So I know you kind of like went through the technical details of what has happened, and that's great. And thank you for giving us more insight. But I just want to highlight that it's solving a real problem that we have heard quite a few times. And so hopefully after all this, people are going to have a better time sending transactions with a ton of notes. Cool. All right, Joe, take it away.
All right. So, I've looked back on the Discord for the past couple years, and there's been a variety of people who've mentioned install issues actually getting Ironfish bootstrapped, and it's really important to get new people running nodes on the network. These issues vary depending on installation methods. So, for example, someone may be trying to use npm Docker container. So there, basically, the goal of this project was to make it as stupid simple as possible to run this, so that there's no dependencies required to run this on your machine, the whole Ironfish node. And so that's where the standalone executable came from. And we're actually at a point now. You can see this on the website, and I'll post a link. But you can basically just go click a link, download a file, and run it on your machine, and you'll be running an Ironfish node. You don't need to install any dependencies. We've packaged it up into a binary that can just run. And the update that was made recently was kind of nuanced, but I won't get into the details. For if the community wanted to try and test this out as well and provide feedback, it comes out with every release of Ironfish, so feel free to test it out. I'll pass it off to Dan, who's talking to a very interesting topic of the fish hash that I think you all are interested in hearing about.
Thanks, Joe. All right. So yeah, I'll give everyone a few updates on what's been going on with fish hash. We gave these updates in our weekly miner call on Tuesday morning Pacific time. So if you're interested in hearing more on a weekly basis, come join those calls. But what's gone on the past couple weeks, we have finalized on some auditors for fish hash. We wanted to find a third-party auditor just to make sure there were no unforeseen vulnerabilities in cryptographic attacks or in unknown optimizations for ASICs around fish hash. So we did finalize on an auditor that is going to be a pretty reputable audit firm called Trail of Bits. So we'll be working with them over the next couple weeks. We do have a version of the node that's in review, which has fish hash integrated, and I'll be working on releasing that next week so that people can run a developer network with all the blocks being hashed in fish hash. So look out for that release next week. We're really excited about this new version because I think it will allow smaller miners, GPU miners, just to be a bigger part of the mining community. overall. I know everyone has been very vocal about wanting this, so we're excited to be moving along with it and actually have a version that has fish hash in the node. We haven't yet, we talked about this a little bit in the miners call as well. We haven't yet decided on a hard fork activation sequence for mainnet. But we did say that it will probably be about a month of allowing people to upgrade after we choose the hard fork activation sequence. So once we announce the activation sequence, it will probably be another month until the changes actually take effect and people will be mining fish hash on mainnet. And I'll give a rough estimate. Will probably be, before we announce the hard fork activation sequence, it'll probably be another few weeks, including testing, going through the code with the auditors, and then running the fish hash on testnet as well. How energy efficient is it? Big Sky asks. So even though you can't run it in our node right now, you can actually, Lolly Diab released a version of his mining software called LowMiner. And I think Hero Miners as well has been working to get a developer pool that sends blocks that you can mine in with fish hash. So I think you can actually test your machines with fish hash. I'll send a link to the latest LowMiner release that has those instructions in it. So yeah, I think you will be able to test your machine. And if you're having trouble, go to the mining channel. I think some people have gotten that working in the mining channel, and we'd be happy to help as well. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to Joe again. You just stayed up here, Joe, to talk about multisig.
Yeah. A big portion of the team has been working on this project called Multisig, and for those of you who haven't heard us talk about it before, it allows users to have a wallet that requires multiple users to sign on that wallet to have a transaction propagated to the network. So that's kind of like having a bank account that has multiple signers that are required to send money somewhere. And the reason that we're doing this is largely for allowing us to create bridges to connect us to other networks, which has always been the goal of Ironfish. And so, when we are implementing this, this will allow us to sort of in a decentralized way, in some cases, to have accounts that propagate transactions from multiple validators. And a large part of the team has been working on this, and we actually have a prototype that we already built and signed a transaction and put on mainnet. So it's feasibly possible, and we actually don't even need to do a hard fork to get this into the system. So the bridge is coming, and this is a huge feature that's going to be important for that. It's actually a lot of cryptography going into making this happen. So it's a really interesting project technically that's going to enable some really cool feature set and expansion of the Ironfish ecosystem. Up next is going to be Dan talking about some big changes to the Node app.
Hi, everybody. So as many of you know, we've been working on an overhaul of the Node app. The Node app being our desktop application where you can run a node, and it's got a graphical user interface, so you don't have to use the terminal. We've been working on this overhaul for a minute, and we are super stoked to announce today that we are ready to bring this thing into beta. So at some point today, we're going to be making the beta release public. We're creating a new channel called Node App Beta that I'm actually going to just drop in the chat right now. And if anyone's interested in beta testing this thing with us, just join that channel. We'll post the beta release there. And yeah, like I mentioned, that's going to be released later today. So really what we're looking to do is just get some verification that this thing works before like going to, before making like a big public announcement. We've tested it. It's definitely at feature parity with the existing Node app. So all the features should be there. We don't expect it to be broken or anything. We just kind of want to stress test it. And would be really happy if y'all would join us in doing that. So this Node app 2.0 is in the initial release essentially at feature parity with the previous Node app. There are some bug fixes that were actually difficult to do in the previous Node app that were very easy to do, and they're not like these bugs have been fixed in this new one. So for instance, importing old accounts. Some people were struggling with that. The new Node app doesn't have an issue with that at all because it's literally just a pass through to the CLI, or it essentially acts the same way as a CLI. But there are a couple features which I'm pretty excited to talk about. One is pretty minor, but now you can actually set a name when you are importing an account by encoded key or JSON file. Some people have expressed in the past that they were having issues when importing accounts because they didn't have names. Now you can actually set that name. And then the other much bigger feature is that we're actually adding multi-language support to the Node app. So this new Node app is going to have support for Spanish, Mandarin, Russian, and Ukrainian. And one disclaimer that I want to make is that we did use AI to generate those translations. So they are we would definitely love it if you could help us verify if you find any issues with translations. We're an open source project, so definitely feel free to make those changes yourselves, or tell us, and then we can verify that change needs to be fixed, and we can make that update. So again, that's Spanish, Mandarin, Russian, and Ukrainian. And if there are other languages that you all would like us to add, just we're love to hear that feedback. So just let us know what is important to you, and we'll try to get it integrated. So yeah, join the new Node app beta channel and keep an eye out for that beta release later today. And with that, I will hand it off to Elena, who is going to talk about grants and partnerships.
Thank you. Yeah. Pretty excited about the Node app. It won't visibly look that much different than what is currently out there. But as Dan was saying, like the entire architecture and backend was completely redone. And then we added a couple of new features, the biggest one being localization. So it's one of probably the biggest feature requests that we have been hearing, especially from the Chinese community. And so really excited to get that in there. And yes, if you have any edits, concerns, please let us know. Cool. So the next section is it will look slightly nicer. Yeah, well, I think so too. The next section is talk about some of the partnerships that we've been working on over at the foundation side. So I think the biggest one that we've been kind of working on is the bridge partnerships. So again, Ironfish, all transactions in Ironfish are completely private. The reason why we're building Ironfish is so that Ironfish can be working as a privacy layer. So for instance, if we were to bridge to Ethereum, you could bridge over Ethereum assets over to Ironfish and trade those assets in a completely private layer. And so we've been working pretty actively to get those bridge partnerships. And right now we have two that we're actually pursuing, one of which we've signed. And so the development for that is going to start soon. And then the other one, we basically have like a verbal approval, and we're working on some of the details. So obviously a partnership isn't done until it's done, but it is looking pretty positive. So the one that we actually did sign on with, when I asked them if we can announce our partnership, at least on this Discord channel, they did give us a green light. But we are going to do a more formal announcement with them. So we're kind of working on coordinating that announcement later on. But the bridge that we're going to be working with, that we've already signed with, is Axelar. Now, Axelar is typically an EVM to EVM chain. And so part of the reason why, for Ironfish in particular, it was a bit challenging to find a bridge partner is because the biggest bridges right now kind of work on either EVM to EVM chains or smart contract to smart contract chains, or a variation or a combination of those variations. And so it is harder for us to find those bridge partnerships, given that Ironfish does not have smart contracts. So for Axelar, we are going to be doing a lot of the work to kind of simulate or emulate the smart contract calls that their architecture would require. So it is going to be a bit more work, but we're excited to do it. There's a question that came in. Will I be able to make a private USDT transactions? So that is the goal. So for instance, let's say you have a stablecoin on Ethereum. Let's say it's USDT. Once the bridge architecture is complete, you will be able to transfer that stablecoin like USDT over to Ironfish. And every single asset, every single transaction on Ironfish is completely private. So once you have it on Ironfish as a wrapped USDT, you can transfer it, store it, swap it, etc., totally privately on Ironfish. So that is the whole point of Ironfish right now. There's not really a privacy solution for crypto, and there are many, many reasons as to why that is. It's really hard, regulatory very hard, technically very hard, and so we don't have many choices. But that's exactly why we're building Ironfish. So that's happening, and I think for most L1s, when they talk about bridge partnerships, they're usually excited about the other way around. Like they want to get their native asset on, Uniswap and Ethereum, and obviously we want to have that too. But for us, the main focus is the opposite flow, right? So we want more assets on Ironfish so that those assets can be traded privately. So for instance, if you like right now you have WBTC on Ethereum, you could actually transfer that wrapped Bitcoin on Ironfish from Ethereum and then trade that in a totally private environment. So pretty excited for that. It is going to be a lot of effort on our side. It is going to be a pretty huge engineering feat. But like I said, very excited to get started. And then right now we're actively pursuing 2 bridge partnerships. And they're going to require different levels of participation from the IF Labs team. So the other thing that happened over the break is we did have 2 exchanges that listed Ironfish, Mexi, and Bitrue. And so those have been added onto our ecosystem page. And then the other partnership that we're, or maybe not partnership per se, but integration that we're actively pursuing is ledger support. So right now, Ironfish is not on any hardware wallet, which has been difficult for some people, especially bridge providers that require custody, or even financial institutions that want to custody Ironfish in a safe way. The lack of hardware support has been, or hardware wallet support has been, a point of friction. So we are pursuing a partnership with someone who's going to be doing that integration. I'm not going to announce who that is yet because it has not been signed yet. So I don't view things as complete until all the parties have signed and work has begun. So it's not quite there yet, but it is looking promising, and we're actively pursuing that partnership to get a ledger integration. Cool. And so we have 3 minutes left, which is just enough time for Kelly to talk about our Ambassador Program.
Hey everyone, thanks Elena. So the moderators have been putting together an ambassador program and kind of pulling together all the things. We're really excited to roll that out pretty soon. We are looking at using Zeely, so there will be quests, there will be flash tasks. Some of those things are going to include memes, videos, Twitter quests, Discord tasks. And I just want to really thank the moderators for putting this together. Particularly Roman has really stepped up and been working on this. If you have ideas or excited about certain prizes or tasks that you would like to complete, please reach out to the moderators. And we are hoping to launch this in the next couple of weeks, so stay tuned. Back to you, Elena.
Awesome. Cool. Well, I am very proud of us for being on time. Usually we ramble on, so this was tight, concise, and clean. So I think we've actually answered most of the questions here. I think there's 2 questions that maybe we didn't target. So proof of work for forever or not question. So at this moment in time, we have no future plans to move away from proof of work. And in fact, we're putting a lot of effort into doing a hard fork to switch the hashing algorithm to be something that's more GPU friendly. So, never say never, but at this moment in time, we have no plans to move away from proof of work. The other question is when smart contracts. So internally, we have been thinking for quite some time of how do we add programmability to Ironfish, or even if that even makes sense? And the reason why I say that is because, if we have sufficient bridges, or like efficient bridges, maybe I should say, then the way we think about it is programmability oftentimes is best in transparent layer, and then we can move funds over to the private layer. So again, it's actually something we're actively thinking about, of like, do we add an EVM support to Ironfish? How would that even look like? How would the user experience reflect private versus public environment? So I don't have an answer for you yet in terms of if Ironfish is ever going to have smart contracts, and if so, when. But it is something that we're actively thinking about. Okay, cool. And I think all the other questions have been already answered in chat. Cool. All right. Well, thank you everyone for being here. I know we had a lot of updates, and the team is, getting back from break and getting those muscles or gears churning, and I'm pretty excited for the work that's coming out, especially for the Node app. I think the first release is coming out soon. I don't remember if Dan mentioned a date or not, but I'm personally pretty excited to use the new Node app, and you guys should too. Cool. And with that, I think we are going to close it off. Thank you, Zamut. I think the team is doing a great job too. So, but I am biased. Cool. I'm just gonna wait a little bit for some of the people to finish typing, and then we'll go ahead and close it out. Yeah, Dan is saying that we're aiming to post the beta download links today. Amazing. I'm definitely gonna get the new Node app. Well, thank you. That is so encouraging. Thank you, I actually don't know how to pronounce your name. Puzepa. Really appreciate it. Okay, well, happy Friday, everyone. I hope you all have a great weekend. And we will see you either on Tuesdays for the weekly miners call, or for the next monthly Discord update. And with that, I'm going to close it off. Bye, everyone.